You finished the project early. Nothing was on fire. No deadline was looming. For the first time in weeks, there was nothing urgent to fix. And within an hour, you had invented something to worry about. Maybe it was a comment someone made 3 days ago that suddenly felt loaded with meaning. Maybe it was a symptom you hadn't noticed until the silence gave you room to notice it. Maybe it was a future conversation you hadn't had yet, one you started rehearsing anyway, complete with arguments and counter-arguments for a fight that didn't exist. You didn't choose this. It happened to you. And it happens to almost everyone, almost every time the noise stops. Your brain was never built for peace. It was built for threat detection. And when there's no real threat available, it doesn't relax. It goes looking for one. This isn't a personality flaw. It isn't anxiety in the clinical sense, though it can certainly feed it. It's something far older and far stranger. It's a leftover survival mechanism so deeply wired into your neural architecture that modern psychologists have given it a name: negativity bias. In the 1990s, psychologist Roy Baumeister, along with several colleagues, published research showing something remarkable. Across nearly every domain of human experience, bad events affect us more powerfully than good ones of equal size. A single harsh criticism outweighs multiple compliments. One financial loss feels worse than an equivalent financial gain feels good. The brain doesn't process positive and negative information symmetrically. It tilts hard toward the negative every single time. Why would evolution build a brain like this? Because for nearly all of human history, the cost of missing a threat was catastrophic, and the cost of missing an opportunity was usually survivable. If your ancestor failed to notice a rustling in the grass that turned out to be nothing, they lost a few seconds of attention. If they failed to notice a rustling that turned out to be a predator, they lost their life. There was no symmetry in the stakes. So evolution built an asymmetric brain, a brain that scans constantly, assumes the worst by default, and treats every silence as suspicious rather than safe. That brain kept your ancestors alive. It is also the same brain sitting inside your skull right now, scrolling through old text messages, looking for evidence that someone is upset with you. Here's where it gets stranger. Neuroscientist Rick Hansen has described the human brain as Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. Negative information sticks. It gets encoded faster, stored longer, and recalled more vividly than positive information. Your brain isn't being dramatic when it replays an awkward interaction from years ago in painful detail while completely forgetting a kind thing someone said to you last week. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's prioritizing threat-relevant memory over everything else, because in the ancestral environment, remembering danger was the difference between life and death. The problem is that you no longer live in that environment. Most modern humans, most of the time, are not in physical danger. Your ancient threat detection system, the one built for predators and starvation and tribal betrayal, is still fully online, but there's nothing left for it to detect. So it manufactures targets. It takes ambiguous, harmless information and reframes it as a threat, because an idle threat detection system is, from an evolutionary standpoint, a wasted resource. This is why you invent problems when things go quiet. Your nervous system interprets unoccupied vigilance as a malfunction. Something must be wrong if I'm not scanning for something wrong. So it finds something, a look someone gave you, a delay in a reply, a pain in your side that's probably nothing but now occupies your full attention. None of these things were dangerous 5 minutes ago, but your brain needed a threat to process, and it built one out of nothing. A 2010 study published by researchers at Harvard found something equally unsettling. Using an experience sampling app, psychologists Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert tracked thousands of people throughout their daily lives and discovered that human minds wander away from the present moment nearly 47% of the time. And critically, this mind-wandering made people measurably less happy, regardless of what they were actually doing. The wandering itself, not the task, was the problem. Worse, the content of that wandering skewed heavily toward worry, rumination, and imagined negative scenarios rather than pleasant daydreaming. In other words, the moment your brain has nothing urgent to process, it doesn't default to peace. It defaults to manufactured anxiety. Stillness isn't neutral to your nervous system. Stillness is uncomfortable, and discomfort demands a target. Think about what this means for modern life. Unlike your ancestors, you are rarely without stillness for long. You don't spend 12 hours a day hunting, foraging, defending territory, or physically surviving. You have quiet evenings. You have empty commutes. You have moments scrolling through nothing in particular with no external demand on your attention. Your ancestors almost never experienced this kind of unstructured stillness. Their threat detection system had constant, real input to process. Yours has almost none. And an understimulated threat detection system doesn't go dormant. It goes searching. This explains something that confuses a lot of people about their own minds. Why do you feel more anxious on a slow Sunday than during a chaotic work week? Why does a peaceful vacation sometimes trigger unexpected dread? It isn't because peace is dangerous. It's because peace gives your ancient brain too much spare processing power, and spare processing power gets redirected toward inventing problems. Because an idle system, evolutionarily speaking, looks like a system that's missing something. Here's the reframe that changes everything. The anxious thought you just had about something that probably isn't actually a problem isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that your threat detection system is doing exactly what it evolved to do in an environment that no longer requires it to do that. You're not broken. You're simply running ancient software on a modern operating system that almost never needs it. This doesn't mean every worry is meaningless. Some threats are real, some symptoms deserve attention, some relationships deserve honest examination, some financial concerns deserve action. The skill isn't to eliminate your threat detection system. It's evolutionarily ancient, and it isn't going anywhere. The skill is learning to recognize when it's manufacturing a target out of boredom rather than responding to something genuinely important. Researchers studying mindfulness-based interventions have found that simply naming this process, recognizing my brain is scanning for a threat because it has nothing else to do, rather than believing the threat itself, measurably reduces the emotional intensity of manufactured anxiety. You can't turn off ancient threat detection, but you can learn to recognize its signature, the vague dread with no clear cause, the spiraling thought that escalates without new information, the worry that appears precisely when things go quiet. These aren't your intuition warning you about something real. They're often just Velcro looking for something to stick to. Tonight, when things finally go quiet and your mind starts reaching for something to worry about, pause before you follow it. Ask yourself a simple question. Is this a real threat? Or is this just an old brain with nothing left to hunt? Because the silence you're so uncomfortable with isn't empty. It's just unfamiliar. For nearly all of human history, there was no such thing as nothing to worry about. There was only the next threat and the next. Your brain has never lived in a world this safe. It still doesn't quite believe it.